Welcome back. Today I'm going to be working on the charging and ignition system. That's the old coil plate. And this is what I'm going to mount in there. So I made this plate and I took some 3/8 tubing to make these standoffs so that this controller would screw onto this one, and then above it the coil is on this one. And it gives a little bit of a gap in between. Hopefully it fits. I got these two screws sticking down, which are hopefully going to go in those two holes down there in the coil mount. I'm going to try to install this, and if it fits, I'll show you what it looks like. So now that fits about as good as it's going to. There's not a whole lot of room up here, as you can see. So the coil fits right up in here, and this box fits right here. My screws are here. I have to make sure that this doesn't rub against anything. I do still have to get the coil wires in here, so I haven't tightened the screws down in case I need to take it back out, and then the tank should slip in right above it. But yeah, it does fit all in one. So let me show you what I did for the regulator. So like with the XS1B, I mounted it here under the right side cover. I made a bracket that bolts down in here, and then drilled and tapped the bracket so I could put some screws in and hold that in. So it's just a matter of wiring it now, and that'll work out just fine. So wiring is a very, very important part of any of these jobs. These are all wires that come from the stator and the pickups for the ignition. Not only do you want to have the right crimping tools, you also want to use solder. It's very important these get done properly, because you don't want an electrical issue while you're out riding. It's just very, very tough to figure out what's going on and repair out on the road. So take your time, do it right. We're going to start by crimping and soldering 2 bullet connectors onto the yellow wires here. On the other 4 wires, there's these little red boots. You have to slide back on them and then crimp a flat blade connector onto them. So we'll do that next. So for these two wires, you just crimp these on, no boot, nothing like that, because they'll go inside of here and then be insulated. The body of this itself has to be grounded, so I'll have to double check to make sure it is. I'm pretty sure it is because this bracket is metal and it goes through here, which should be grounded, but I will make sure. I might even add an additional ground wire on it just to be sure. So I got these crimped on, but man, these bullet connectors they give you are, I don't know, the cable's like super big for these. So I definitely need to put some solder in here. I hate to say it, but I'm really not impressed with this system. It's going to take a lot of extra work to get this thing hooked up the way I want it. They should have given you extra wire for everything, but they didn't. So I guess they just expect you to wire it the way that they do, even though it doesn't say where to mount this in the instruction. All right. So I got those two connected. I got the positive going up here to the battery. I really would like it to go through a fuse, but it's such a thick wire, and this is the wire that goes to the fuse leading to it. I just can't. If anything went wrong, it would melt that whole thing. So we'll do it the way it says. Not super thrilled about that either. They give you this harness. Does really look familiar? Remember, I had to put one in the XS1. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wires going through here, and 4 coming out at the end. So somewhere they're looped inside here. This connector goes here. On the other end of this long harness, this orange wire goes up here. So we don't need it that long. If I plug this in here, that means I got to mount the relay here. I don't want the relay up here where it can get wet. I'll probably install it over here. So I got a lot of wiring to do. First thing I have to do is cut this this protecting sleeve over this thing, get these wires out of here and figure out what I got going on. I took the protective sheathing off this. You got 4 wires going into 1. Does that look okay to any of you guys? I mean, I don't know about you, but that looks funky to me, having 4 wires going to 1 like that. I have a feeling I'm just going to be cutting this harness apart, wiring it myself. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I cut this wire, the one that goes to the coil. I cut the one out of the plug. I'm just going to use bullet connectors and put them together. I'm going to do that with every one of these wires, so I can have the wires run where I want them. I'll put heat shrink on them as needed. Yeah, it's just the way I have it installed and the way the harness they gave me is, it's just not going to work. So sometimes you're better off just doing things yourself. These sets with like the bolt connectors and the insulators and stuff, they come in very handy. Also, again, I'm going to use this as a ground. It was originally used in the XS1, XS1B. I don't know about the XS2, but I'm tapping this out just so the threads get a good ground, because the previous owner, somebody painted that. I'm also going to take a Dremel and just go around the edges here, make sure there's some good metal on there. Grounds are very important. I'm wiring this up now. It kind of looks like crap, but I need to get some zip ties and clean everything up. And I mounted the relay here, kind of like, I think I did that on the XS1B too. Mounted it right about there. Yeah, so we'll continue on. All right, it's all done. The wiring, I got the battery charging, disconnected of course, but this took a lot longer than I thought it would. I mean, I had to redo all stuff. Those aren't being used anymore. That one's not being used. Those are all the old points connection. I made a harness and even shrunk it with the gray heat shrink. My regulator's all hooked up. So, charging and ignition are done. It's a new day for me. Got home from work. So far, I have put the brake pedal on, the brake switch, the right foot peg, and the Kickstarter in, and now I'm going to put oil in this engine. First time it's had oil in it in like 8 years or so. Alright, the oil's not full, but it is on the stick. I did check my tail light for the brake pedal. I'm actually kind of nervous here about what I'm about to do next. Turn out the lights. I've got the spark plugs sitting on the engine. I'm going to turn the key on and I'm going to hit the decompression starter lever. I'm going to see if this engine turns over and if there's any spark. Okay. It's not consistent? Unless I'm just not saying something? It's like when you turn it on and it starts cranking, and when you let it off is when it gets spark. Which is weird because... why would that happen? Alright, let me get back to you. Okay, I believe there's a very simple solution to this. Well, that does involve me tearing everything apart and throwing it in the garbage. This battery has only 11 point something volts in it. It's cranking the engine over because there's no compression, because I have the plugs out. So, if I turn the lights out, turn the key on, so what's happening is it's storing up voltage right now. And when you hit the starter, you know, that's when you got the most voltage and it gives a spark. As it's cranking over, the battery's draining down. When you let off the starter, it has enough volts for that one last kick. So with the key on, I got my foot on the kickstart. Let's see if we can get here. We got good spark. So it's just a matter of a 13-year-old battery trying to start this bike. This is the one on the CB350. I bought a new one for this, but I put in the CB350 because, I mean, yeah, that battery was like 10 years old, and I decided to just, yeah, I think this says 13 on it, so it's 11 years old. All right, we can continue on. It cranks. It has some kind of spark. I can start putting this side kind of together, just not that cover because I'm going to have to check the timing. This workshop is a disaster. There is just junk everywhere. I really got to tidy this up, but I don't film putting the exhaust on. It's just, if you've ever done this, you know, on these XS650s, this is the third one I've done, and they are all a pain in the ass. These replica exhausts, they just don't want to fit right, but if you struggle long enough and put enough hours into it, you will get the exhaust on eventually. So we got both pipes. After you get done, make sure you clean them good. Some kind of Windex or something. Get all the grease smudges off because they will become permanent if you don't once it heats up. So, next on the list of things to do, actually I have no room here, carburetors. Now, you take the slide off, take this out. I'm going to move this needle down one. That will essentially lift the needle up one spot, because I at least tend to need to run a little richer than normal. So, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put this together. I'm going to put it on the bike and do the same with the other one. All right. Slide the cap over the cable. This is going to be fun. Oh yeah, don't forget to put your spring on there. Now, while you're holding the spring and that, put your cable in through that hole and slide it over. Then you're going to take this, drop it in, so it locks the cable from coming back out. And you can release your spring in there, and you're ready to install that in the carburetor. Now there's a pin right here, and you have to line this slide up so it slides down there. Now on the other side there's a thicker slide, and that is your idle adjustment. So when you turn this, it moves that barb on the right. You thread that back on, make sure that the cable's not holding it open. Then we can pop it on that boot and tighten the clamps. So, I don't know if you can see, but down at the bottom of that slide, there's a little gap. Right. It's bigger on this side. So to initially sync these carburetors, what you can do is take a tiny drill bit and just make sure that they're, you can just slide through on both carbs the same. That'll kind of set the, the height of the floats about the same. The idle for each carburetor the same. So with the carburetor in, the clamps over there tight, put the AirPod air filter that came with these. Hooking up the fuel line is next. These are the chokes. That's on, that's off. On the other bike, I gotta put about halfway. On the XS1, on the XS1B, I don't use it at all. Yeah, does it look like something? I do have another battery for it. So what's left? I didn't put the other carb on completely because these carbs are like mirrored to each other, except the idle on this side and the idle on this side are on the outside, but the fuel line is on the inside on this, and it's on the outside on this, and the choke's on the outside here and the inside here. That's the way these sets are. On these older bikes, you may have to tilt the carbs in a little bit so the petcock doesn't interfere with anything. There is not a lot left to do. I want to crank it over with a timing light so I can see if this timing's even close before I even put fuel to it to see if it'll run. But yeah, next video, maybe we'll get this thing running. The problem is that I don't want to start it here because, God forbid there's a fire. It's all wood, and even though I have a fire extinguisher, I just don't want to deal with that. But outside there's still snow, so it may be a little while before I can push this thing outside and give it a shot. All right. Oh, we still got to wire the neutral light. That switch is no good, I found out, so I'm going to have to replace that and wire it in. But that's a simple job. I'll do that next time. But yeah, good deal. I gotta paint these red. I can't leave them the gold. I gotta do something to kind of match the rest of the bike. All right. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.